You're listening to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and SoundCloud. As we all know by now, the investigation into the money our friend Chase Young borrowed from the quote-unquote family friend has concluded. A Young suspension is only 2 games. Paige, we were worried it would be more, but 2 games including time already served, so to speak, which was the Maryland game. And Young's going to be reinstated after the Rutgers game, which means he'll be back for Penn State, which is good news. Did you guys happen to hear any of the press conference that Gene Smith did today?
I'm finding out about this right now for the first time.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. When did you hear about this?
So, Mike, you have not been on the interwebs today. Yeah. So.
No, I was. I didn't even see it. It wasn't even on the first. I mean, we got Verlander won his second Cy Young Award. It was the only thing I saw.
Yeah, no. So, the NCAA came back, and the suspension is 2 games with time already served. I hate using that, and it sounds like he's in jail. The kid didn't do anything wrong. He borrowed money to, get his girlfriend to the Rose Bowl. However, the Maryland game counts against the 2-game suspension. He'll miss the Rutgers game, big deal, and then he'll be back for Penn State. It was interesting because some rumors had started to circulate over the last few days that Young's old high school coach, who's now on the Maryland staff, turned him in. And I don't know if you guys caught either during the telecast, probably not because you'd flipped over to the Minnesota-Penn State game, but late in the telecast of the Maryland-Ohio State game, Joel Klatt had speculated that maybe Ohio State was running up the score because they thought Maryland had something to do with the suspension. There were a couple of comments during the telecast, so this rumor started circulating that it could have been Maryland, and if it was Maryland, was it Young's old high school coach who's now on the staff? And then a couple of days ago, like within the last 48 hours before a resolution, there was another rumor that Penn State head coach James Franklin turned him in. Anyway, I listened to the press conference today, and Smith debunked both rumors, and Doug Marie of Cleveland.com actually answered he actually asked several questions of Smith. They were actually really good. It was a really funny exchange between the two of them. But Marie basically got out of Smith that the report came through the university and not through the football program. Smith didn't really go into specifics, but he did say that the NCAA moved swiftly. I mean, they put in a request for reinstatement yesterday morning, Tuesday. The NCAA came back 24 hours later this morning with 2 games, and Smith had explained that the punishment for Young's infraction is 1 to 4 games, and Young got 2 from the NCAA based on the facts. He said Smith actually could have filed an appeal to play against Rutgers. It would have taken probably until Friday for like a 5-person committee to weigh it and decide whether he could play. But Young and his family decided to decline and accept the suspension. The other thing I thought was interesting is that Smith, at the very top, was thanking various people, the compliance department, the NCAA, and he also thanked Young and his family. And I thought some of the quotes were interesting. He said he thanked Young and his family for, quote, taking the high road and being, quote, highly cooperative. And he spoke glowingly of Chase Young. Just talking about his character, how he apologized. And I just thought it was interesting because to me, the tenor of this press conference and the way he spoke of Young, a kid who, let's face it, he broke the rules. The tenor, the tone was very different from the way it might have been like 15 years ago. He spoke very glowingly again, like I said, of Young, which just makes me wonder how much the national discussion around the Fair Pay to Play Act this year has influenced the way people view this situation. Obviously, the view of this sort of thing has changed quite a bit over the last few years. I just thought it was interesting that Smith spoke glowingly of him, and yet he had broken the rules. Anyway, Paige, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I hadn't heard or seen any of that. But it is a very interesting comment, not so much that he cooperated, but to take the high road, which just infers, right, there was some nefarious intent either by whomever leaked it or, what the motives were. I mean, to think it was like the Maryland coaching staff or like James Franklin, I doubt that. But it is interesting as hell. Where this came from. And it could just very easily be like an email. It's not like Donald Trump with a whistleblower, right? Where you have to go through these channels, right? I mean, Jesus Christ, didn't Tressel, I mean, wasn't it an email? By the way, 4 of your players are being investigated, by the FBI, which again, I'll never understand. To the day I die, if you get an email like that and it has the 3 letters FBI in there, I think number one, don't respond. You throw your computer out the window and run into Gene Smith's office, which are none of the 3 things that Tressel did. But yeah, I was totally, I just like to put my conspiracy hat on. I was all thinking, there's just no way that the timing of this, Maryland and Rutgers, and it is a kind of a bizarre sort of story if you think about all the intangibles that are surrounding it.
Did they say what the number was? How much he borrowed?
No, so he wouldn't go into specifics, and he said that from the top of the press conference that he wouldn't go into specifics of the investigation. And of course, when he went to questions, there were some members of the local press, of the local beat writers, that tried to get at some of the specifics, and he wouldn't answer them. But I did think it was interesting that the NCAA had a quick look at it. They turned it around in 24 hours. They didn't get anywhere close to the 4 games that they could have, which again, Smith had explained at the top that it was an infraction that generally comes with a suspension of 1 to 4 games. The other thing I thought was interesting is that toward the end of the press conference, Smith acknowledged Kirk Herbstreit's attempt on College Game Day last Saturday to bring to light the process and how it all, how the whole thing goes. And if you guys, I don't know if you actually were watching Game Day or heard after the fact, but Herbstreit said he mentioned 4 games and that the NCAA would kind of work its way back from that. Anyway, in as many words, I think Smith basically said, look, Herbstreit was right. He was trying to explain to people, and it was totally misunderstood and misconstrued. Some of the local beat writers took exception with what Herbstreit had said. And anyway, I thought it was interesting that Smith took time out of that press conference to acknowledge Herbstreit's attempt to explain everything and how it kind of all went awry and was misunderstood.
So does that mean that Smith is Herbstreit's source through this whole process?
Maybe it could very well be. I thought that was interesting. So the one thought I had was, is Chase Young still dating this girl that he flew out to the Rose Bowl? I mean, if they're not dating, and maybe they broke up or something, could she have been the one that leaked it, or maybe someone from her crew? I don't know. Anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Right,
at this
and
stage.
She's not allowed to take any loan from anybody because she's dating him? What if she wants to go buy a pair of shoes or something? Does that benefit him?
She's not supposed to use his name, try and, she's not supposed to drop his name or, trade on his name, so to speak. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, the rule book is pretty thick.
Well, and outdated.
All that.
And, Smith also acknowledged in the press conference, too, that he's like, look, we can debate if these rules have any place in this society anymore, if they need to be revised. That's another discussion. But which I thought was interesting for him to acknowledge. And again, kind of a change, a sign of the change in times, right? That you have an athletic director up there and he's really kind of praising this young athlete who technically broke the rules, but just the whole mood of the press conference, I think Smith even seemed to acknowledge, look, this is, it's ridiculous that we're here. It's ridiculous that he's in trouble. Anyway.
Right. Well, we were saying before, they drill it into these players' head. These are rules. You can't break them every day. All these rules. But do they really know every single rule? Like, are you allowed to go over someone's house for a burger at a backyard barbecue?
That's true.
There's all kinds of squishiness in there.
That's true.
That's a very fair point. But $1,500 in your pocket is not like some rinky dink.
This is probably one rule he probably would have remembered, right? Well, when he's available to the press, it'll be interesting what he has to say, because they'll certainly ask him about it.
You're talking about Chase Young.
Chase Young, yeah. And Smith had even said when asked, somebody had asked him a question about, well, did he know the rules? Did he understand? And he's like, well, you'll have to ask Chase that. So, he'll most certainly be asked that.
As long as this thing is over, you know how these things just don't seem to die, with the Urban Meyer thing. And, wait, he erased some text messages. Hold on a second. Right. And then you get some weird, not even a beat writer, just some Facebook writer who's trying to make a comeback. All these, innuendos.
Well, so that's
like it never wanted to die, that Zach Smith.
Yeah. Well, so there were a couple of interesting comments from Doug LeMarie on his text service today, and one thing he said that he didn't expect, reporters, anyone in the press to try to keep digging on it. He said he feels like the mood where everybody is on this issue, it's very pro player at this stage. If it were a multi-million-dollar head coach, it'd be a different story. But he felt like he said he'd be very surprised if anyone in the press would try to dig in an attempt to dig up more, really dig into it. So because the perception is, or the view now is pro player in this day and age. So
anybody can be sympathetic to it.
Yeah, totally. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you think this is were we over and done here, or do you think there could be more? Paige, what do you think?
No, I think it's totally done. I just think the interesting thing is who did it, right?
Yeah.
And that, to me, like just some of the comments that I heard you say that Smith said and those texts from LeMarie, it just kind of sounds like that it's flimsy on the back end, right? And so, they're just going to let this thing sort of fade into the ether.
Yeah.
But it is interesting as hell. Who's Deep Throat here? I mean, makes me. All this actually makes me a hell of a lot more curious than I was 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. No, it was somebody trying to screw him over. I mean, I think that much is clear. Whether it's an old friend that he fell out with, somebody who was hoping to make some money off him that fell out of favor with Young, an ex-girlfriend, who knows. Clearly, it was an attempt to undercut his career.
It could be anybody, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's famous.
Yeah. Well, the timing of it makes me think that it was somebody who, who's not really plugged in, like somebody because you would think you'd wait until like the week before Penn State and Michigan that would have really screwed him, right, and screwed the program.
Right, exactly.
The timing just makes me think it could be somebody that's not really,
unless they were banking on 4 games.
That's true. Yeah,
or even a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And remember who was that kid? It was like 2 years ago in the draft. He was like from Auburn or something.
Tunsil, Larry Tunsil. I think it was Tunsil, the offensive lineman who went to Ole Miss, right?
Yeah, with the pot.
A Twitter photo
mask,
of his gas mask. Yeah. 5 seconds before he's about to call his name.
Oh, God, so brutal.
Oh, yeah. So, God, who knows? But I'm happy for. Obviously, as a huge Ohio State fan, this is the best possible outcome, and the fact that he gets to sit out 2 games he's not going to be needed, and there's no risk of any kind of freak injury.
Is he back in the Heisman race?
I don't think so. So what I've been hearing from a lot of the talking heads who are familiar with the Heisman voters is that, first of all, there are too many Heisman voters. There are people that don't really pay attention, and there are people who are of a certain generation that are very sanctimonious about this sort of thing, who will probably scratch him off the list just because he got in trouble for some minor infraction. Somebody with antiquated ideas of amateurism and what college athletes should be and what they should represent. It probably takes him out of the running. I don't know. He'll probably get some votes. I don't know if he'll maybe he could still be a finalist, but probably takes him out of the running.
He was a long shot to begin with. Then this just a nail in the coffin, and then Burrow's performance last week, against Alabama. This is pretty much. I mean, unless LSU just falls off.
If he has big games in Penn State, Michigan, in the Big Ten championship, assuming we get there, I bet he places third.
Could be. I mean, because after Burrow,
definitely get an invite.
Yeah, because after Burrow, I mean, who's number two? I mean, Tua played well last week, but he had some big mistakes though too. I don't know that there's a second really strong candidate after Burrow at this stage. So, Mike, you could be right. He could he's going to have huge opportunities. Penn State, Michigan, and the Big Ten title game, should it happen, to really make a case. It would be cool just to see him be a finalist. I don't care if he wins it.
No, yeah.
It's really not. It really does fall off. Jalen Hurts is not really.
No, I agree with you.
Think of anybody else.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it still feels like, at least, to get there as a finalist, that still could be on the table for him. Although, I agree with you, Paige. He was a long shot to begin with. Well, do you guys have anything else to say? Anything else to say about the Chase Young situation?
Nope.
We feel pretty good about that. All right, good. Well,
Not
let's
gonna
move.
Miss him for the Rutgers game.
Yeah, no, not at all. And speaking of that, let's get to the long-awaited preview of Rutgers. I actually looked up some stats that I think are kind of revealing about this particular matchup. Let me go through them here, and then let's go around the horn here with some predictions. So Rutgers comes into Saturday at 2-7. Their only wins this season are over UMass in their opener. They beat UMass 48-7, and 44-34 win over Liberty on October 26th. That was a couple of weeks ago. This is interesting.
Okay.
Rutgers has not beaten a Big Ten opponent in over 2 years. And they're currently on an 18-game losing streak in conference play. Their last win over a Big Ten opponent was against, surprise, surprise, Maryland on November 4th, 2017. So they're currently an 18-game losing streak in conference play. That's pretty pathetic. Ohio State is 5-0. 5-0 all-time against Rutgers. They played for the first time when Rutgers entered the Big Ten in 2014. They've outscored the Scarlet Knights 271-27 in this series.
Oh my
The last time I checked, the line for Saturday's game was OSU minus 52, which, I mean, would you guys agree that seems a little low? 52
low
points.
Well, it's only low if he plays the starters,
right.
Less than the first 2 quarters.
Right. I would think, just to keep these guys sharp, he has to give them 2 quarters of action at least.
Yeah.
And I expect he's going to take the same approach against Rutgers that he did against Maryland, Ryan Day. I think he, I think they're going to pull out all the stops, and they're kind of, to Sloan's point on Sunday, they seem to take this approach that the opponent is kind of this nameless, faceless opponent, and they're going to go out there and do things their way. And I think that's what they're going to do against Rutgers. So I'll go first with my prediction. I'll kick it around to you guys. I have Ohio State winning 84-10. 84-10. I think.
I hope they don't. Don't do that.
They're going to clear 70 in this game. If they could put up 70 on Miami of Ohio, put up 70 against Maryland.
Without trying, really.
And again, Maryland beat this Rutgers team by 41 points. The Maryland team we just beat by 60 beat this team by 40. I like Ohio State 84-10. Real quick, before you guys go, my father-in-law, Ken Meyer, he's got Ohio State winning this 72-7 is his prediction. Mike, do you got a prediction? Well, how do you see this one?
271-27. That's a tenfold. That's a 10 times. So I'll have to go with 66-6.
66-6. So you think they're going to show him a little mercy, I guess, huh?
Well, you're right. They do have to play him for the first 2 quarters, and he doesn't show any mercy. Day doesn't in the first half. I mean, he's still going after block punts. They really they really want to play. You know, they want to keep sharp. But the backups, they scored 30 points against Maryland. So I don't know how you can. I feel conservative by saying 66, but
it does feel a little conservative. But is that your final?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the formula. It's a 10-fold increase.
All right, 66-6. Paige,
it's actually 11, but whatever. Yeah.
Jesus. I was actually thinking 62-0, but you know what occurs to me though that none of us have taken into account is, isn't it cold as fuck back east right now?
I haven't taken that into account.
There's an Arctic blast, right? So, I mean, I don't know how long it's supposed to last.
What is the weather? I didn't even look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
What's the weather?
Where do they play? Piscataway or something? Where do they play?
Yeah, it's in like New Jersey. It's cold as shit back there, man.
All right, yeah. Well, it's 25 degrees there right now. It's middle of the night, of course. Saturday, the weather forecast, high of 38. Low of 20. Okay. It's going to be clear.
It's supposed to warm up, I guess. Yeah.
Clear.
That's good playing weather. That's not really obstruction.
Yeah.
Obstructional.
Still, though, it's going to be cold. I think that matters.
Okay.
It's going to be. I'm going to say 48-4. Double safety by Rutgers and
40.
Not cover.
Wow. Really? Okay.
Hey, man, it could be cold and windy back there.
Double safety. That's kind of almost like a loss.
He's been calling the double safeties all season. Paige is he's going to keep throwing that one down until it happens, I think.
I was originally going to go with 62-0 until I thought of the Arctic blast. So now that's going to change everything. So yeah, I don't think we cover.
Wow. Interesting. Really? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if there's a game on the schedule that they would cover without much effort, it would be that. But you're thinking the weather plays a big role, has a big hand in why they don't cover, or just that Day kind of calls off the dogs early because you got Penn State looming next weekend and followed by Michigan. Is that the thought process, or that's just your gut that it's 48? They're going to keep it. They're not going to cover.
Yeah, I think it's mostly just the weather. I mean, who knows? This game shouldn't even be played on paper. I think the other thing is, like, how does a team get this bad?
Yeah.
I mean, like, even if they played like Appalachian State, that wouldn't be this pathetic. And I just don't understand what happened.
A decent team.
Well, they were a decent team
long ago.
Yeah, well, they had a halfway decent year.
It's like they just quit.
They had a halfway decent year, their first year in the program, because I went back and looked at some historical results. They beat Michigan in 2014. They were a bowl-eligible team. They made a bowl that year. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they were actually a halfway respectable program when they entered the Big Ten, and then just the fall has just been precipitous. But yeah, it does raise the question: why are they in this league? What
is their closest margin with Ohio State? Because I know we've blown them out. We've scored over 50 in every game, haven't we?
Yeah, I'd have to look that up, but I want to say
It feels like we've blown them out every time.
Oh yeah, I think the closest margin might have been 2017, but I'd have to look that up. I mean, is it worth looking up?
No, it's just not.
Yeah, the games haven't been even remotely close. It's been a name your score game since Rutgers entered the league, and it's only getting worse. I guess we have Jim Delaney to thank for this. The idea was to get some more eyeballs on televisions on the Eastern Seaboard, but I'm not sure it's achieved that. And meanwhile, Rutgers is collecting a pretty big paycheck, just from their membership with the Big Ten.
It's worked
what are they
out
doing
for
with
them.
Yeah, I'd say so.
They don't mind.
Yeah, it's a game I don't look forward to, and to put it back to back with Maryland, following a bye week where you had a bye, you had Maryland, had this.
Just sucks.
It was it does.
Sucks.
Yeah. Well,
there's like no positives. I mean, the only thing is don't get hurt.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's not like you get good reps. I mean,
What do you think? We're getting
you're-
soft a little bit. We're going to be too soft for Penn State or something like that.
I don't
I
worry
mean,
about that with this team. I wouldn't worry about that with this team. Maybe some of the Urban Meyer teams in the latter years I might have worried about that. Especially you come out of a game like that with some false sense of security or a false sense of confidence because, you know, you think a little too highly of yourself after the way you performed against those teams. But I'm not worried about that with this team. I mean, from what I've seen through 9 games, I don't worry about them getting soft or losing their edge. I think Day has them, right, like laser focused. That's just my view of it. I don't know. Paige, do you have a different view to that? What do you think?
No, I agree with you. That's why I'm saying, like, there's no reason even to want to play this game. It's not. There's just no benefits. There's probably really nothing bad that can happen. I mean, outside of somebody getting hurt, I think you're right. Like, in years past, you might say, God, you have a bye, these 2 terrible teams, and then you've got 2 really tough games. It's just, it's annoying. It's just an annoying sort of 3-week period in the season. So,
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, at the same time, the gauntlet they're about to run beginning next week at Penn State, followed by Michigan, then presumably the Big Ten title game. I guess they should try and enjoy this, right? Get the starters out at halftime. Yeah. And maybe they go vanilla. And, again, that would maybe support your prediction, Paige. Maybe they dial it back this week, right? I think Day was trying to prove a point. You had the Young suspension. He was trying to keep his team's edge with one of their captains out, one of their best players out. But now that they know he's coming back with Penn State, maybe they do dial it back a little bit, go vanilla. They don't want to show anything to Penn State or Michigan, and maybe you get a result that's more in line with your 48 to double safety.
Yeah, I mean, if things go to plan, right, they're looking at 5 straight games, probably against top 15 teams and some top 10 teams, top 5 teams.
Yeah.
So it's going to get real fast. This is
the waiting is
speed bump. It's just a waste of time.
It is. So hey, look, there's a handful of other games that I think are pretty interesting. Why don't we spend like a minute on each before we wrap it up? I know it's getting late for you guys, but I thought it'd be fun just to touch on these real quick because they do have some bearing on Ohio State. The first is number 8, Minnesota, at number 20, Iowa. Iowa is a 3-point favorite in that game. So it seems Minnesota is still kind of earning their stripes with the odds makers. That was my takeaway. Paige, give me one thought on that game.
I think everyone thinks that it's a trap game, and I don't think Iowa's very good, and I think Minnesota's going to win that game for sure.
All right. Yeah. Minnesota's certainly the more dynamic offense, right? I think they have a legitimately good quarterback. By the way, that quarterback is a transfer from Western Michigan. They interviewed PJ Fleck on the playoff show on ESPN yesterday. And he transferred from Western Michigan. He was ineligible last year. He sat out last year. But we did not see Tanner Morgan last year in the shoe when they came in and give us a good game. Morgan, he's a new face in the Big Ten. I thought that was interesting. Mike, give me one thought on Minnesota at Iowa. Iowa's a 3-point favorite in that game. What do you think?
Is there like a Paul Bunyan axe? What do these teams play for this game?
No, I think they play for a pig. They play for a bronze pig.
A bronze pig.
Yeah.
Where does that pig reside right now?
Probably in Iowa, I would assume. I don't know, but it is a bronze pig. That much I know. I don't remember the name of the trophy.
I was impressed with Minnesota over Penn State. I think they got some players that like their QB. I think they're going to win too. It's in Iowa. It's probably a day game. I think they're going to pull it out.
All right. Okay. Iowa's been really good against top 10 teams in Kinnick. I think I agree with you guys. I don't think this Iowa team, there's something missing. That their offense is terrible. They're a good defensive team. I like Minnesota in this one. Okay. Indiana at Penn State. It's Indiana at number 9 Penn State. Penn State's a 14.5-point favorite in this one. the Nittany Lions cannot afford to sulk after the loss to Minnesota against the pesky Hoosiers. Paige, how do you see this one?
So isn't it kind of weird that Indiana isn't ranked?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I thought they were 24 or something like that.
They're ranked in the AP and the coaches poll, but they're not in the college. They did not make the college football rankings this week.
Yeah, and I read, I don't know who it was, someone had something interesting. Who did Texas beat last week? They beat, Kansas State.
Yeah.
And went from unranked, so a 6-3 Texas, who was unranked, beat like a 24-ranked Kansas State, and is now ranked 19th by the committee.
Yeah.
Which, again, just, I'm not huge on the whole conspiracy thing, and I understand this isn't the question that you asked me. But that only helps LSU, and it only helps the case for the SEC to pump these teams up and say, oh, look how tough our schedule is. I'm sorry, Texas sucks.
Yeah.
And the fact that Indiana can't even get in the top 25 is a joke.
Yeah.
Now, who are they playing again on Saturday? I didn't even listen to your question.
The Hoosiers at number 9 Penn State. Penn State coming off the loss to Minnesota.
Oh, Jesus.
Penn State's a 14.5-point favorite in this one, according to the odds makers. What do you think?
I think it'll be a tough game. I think
agree.
Penn State will win. I don't think they can cover that, though.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, Indiana's pretty damn crafty. I was not a huge believer in Penn State even before the game last week against Minnesota. I mean, Michigan dominated them in the second half. I understand it was only one quarter. So I think Penn State will win. I don't think they'll cover.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. It depends on who Indiana's going to have at quarterback, and both their quarterbacks are pretty good. But I think that Michael Penix Jr. is a different kind of quarterback for them. I think he's a really good player. Mike, do you have any thoughts on Indiana at number 9 Penn State?
Indiana usually plays them tough. They play them tough for a half. I remember last year, the year before with Barkley, we were rooting for them to win, and they hung around, but I don't really think they have the horses. They're Penn State will win decisively.
Wow. Okay, so you think Penn State wins decisively. I think it's a good game. I don't have the balls to pick Indiana to win this one, but it is interesting. Penn State, the question of whether Penn State's a little hungover from the Minnesota loss and whether that has any bearing on this game. I think it's a good game. Penn State probably gets it done in a close one, so I'm going to pick Penn State. Okay, go ahead, Paige.
So if Penn State loses, then we just walk into the championship game. Is that right? No, I guess if Michigan beat us, I don't understand what all the tiebreakers are. I mean, I want Penn State to come in as highly ranked as possible.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I mean, Penn State comes in with, if they lose, they'll come in with 2 conference losses, and what they would need is to beat Ohio State. I'd have to go through all the scenarios in the East, but yeah, they would have to beat Ohio State.
Michigan to beat us. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have to beat Ohio State, and then Michigan would have to beat us. Yeah, thank you, Mike. That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
And
That's
Michigan
a game to
wouldn't
watch.
get in now. Would Michigan? Wait, they've lost to Penn State and
Wisconsin. Yeah. So Michigan would have to clearly they would have to hope for a loss at Penn State, or Ohio State losing to Penn State, that is, and then they would have to beat us, and then they would own the head-to-head. So yeah, I mean, you'd be betting on Ohio State losing back-to-back Penn State to Michigan. That's
never crossed my mind.
So speaking of Michigan, D'Antonio's bringing Sparty to the big house on Saturday. It's unranked Michigan State, who's kind of in a tailspin right now. They blew a 25-point lead to Illinois at home and lost. I think it was a 31-10 fourth quarter lead that Michigan State lost, that blew, and then ultimately lost the game to Illinois last week. They've been obviously in a tailspin. They visit Michigan, who's been playing well of late. Number 15, Michigan. Michigan's only a 13.5-point favorite in this game. What do we think? Win one for Dino? Could this be D'Antonio's swan song at Michigan State? Is Galler going to be proven to be right?
Yeah,
that this is it for him. Paige, what do you think?
Yes, I think this is just another step of the journey to Gallagher's proclamation coming true. As much as I want to pick Michigan State here, I just don't see it. Unfortunately, Michigan's playing much better, and Michigan State's just not very good. Yeah. The old adage where you throw out the records and stuff like that. Yeah, I think Michigan covers.
You think they cover? Okay. Mike, what do you think? Michigan's a 13.5-point favorite in this one. How do you see it?
I'm going to go with Michigan State.
Whoa.
They this is a different kind of game for them. They're still hurting from that little brother comment all those years ago. They just can't get over that. This is a way to turn around. This is to salvage their season. This is their Super Bowl. They take this game very seriously.
Wow. I mean, this could be salvaging D'Antonio's job.
Yeah. Well, and as good as Michigan has looked, I don't know. I still am not sure that I mean, I feel like anything is possible with Shea Patterson at quarterback, right? And I still feel like they have not yet figured out that they've got this good quartet of receivers that could really make them a dynamic offense. You've got a coach who would much rather be running the football 55 times a game. You've got a quarterback who sometimes can't hit the broadside of the barn with a football. Anything's possible. It's a rivalry game. Maybe you're right. I'm taking Michigan in this one, but I think it'll be close. And I don't think Michigan covers. But I do think they win the game.
I think it's going to be a close game, too.
All right. Okay, so I got two more to go. Georgia, number 4 Georgia, who is the committee's number 4, at number 12 Auburn. Georgia's a 2.5-point favorite in this one. What do you guys think? Can Auburn ruin UGA's playoff hopes, or do the Bulldogs roll on? Paige, how do you see that one?
I don't know that I've seen either one of those teams play. Maybe more than like a couple quarters for Georgia. Doesn't Auburn have that guy Bo Nix?
Yeah, freshman
Georgia's
quarterback.
Not very good.
Yeah.
I think Auburn. I like Auburn in this one. I don't think Georgia's very good.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good. I mean, they're not what they were the last couple of years, and they're still just very, very upset about having Jake Fromm as their quarterback and not Justin Fields. So I think Auburn gets it done.
All right, Mike. What do you have any view of this game? What do you think?
Georgia is a favorite in Auburn.
2.5 points. 2.5 points. Yeah.
That is that's perplexed. That's bizarre. I'm shocked actually.
Yeah.
Auburn's tough. They're playing. I mean, they're playing at home. It's a rivalry. I mean,
they got a freshman quarterback.
Georgia for some. Yeah, Bo Nix. He's not good yet. Who knows? He'll probably just be a regular, run-of-the-mill Auburn quarterback. Fromm is having a disappointing year. Well, he's just not what he was last year, I'd say. But for some reason, they have Georgia as a favorite. Well, I guess they're 4, but I don't think they deserve. I don't think they deserve that ranking either.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Georgia. I think for some, when you see a confusing line like that, I take the opposite.
All right, so you're taking Georgia. So Auburn is one of these teams, though, that I think makes you think. They're perplexing. So they open the season with a 6-point win over Oregon, who's a top 10 team in the committee's rankings. Their only losses are 24-13 at Florida. There's really no disgrace in that. I think that was a pretty good game. They lost by 3 at LSU, who's the committee's number 1. That was a 3-point game at LSU. UGA's coming into their house. I like Auburn in this game. This is a top 15 team. They're number 12. They're the committee's number 12.
Gaining points. You would think Auburn would be the team to pick.
I'm taking Auburn.
No-brainer.
Yeah.
That's why I'm picking Georgia.
Okay. All right. I'll take Auburn in this one. The last one, number 10, Oklahoma at number 12, Baylor. Baylor's undefeated. Baylor might be the Big 12's last hope at the playoff, because I don't know there are a ton of believers at Oklahoma, in Oklahoma. As good as their offense is, I think that defense continues to be a problem. They're the committee's number 10, and they're kind of last in line of the one-loss teams. And I think, if a team is going to make it into the field, it's probably going to be it has to be an undefeated Baylor. Now, Oklahoma is a 10-point favorite in this game, even though it's at Baylor. You guys have any thoughts on this? Paige, what do you think?
I know Baylor's not played that tough a schedule, at least in their non-conference. I mean, I'm just pulling it. I have really no idea. But wasn't Oklahoma life and death to beat Iowa State? Yeah, fuck it. I'm going with Baylor.
Yeah,
Baylor's going to pull it out.
Yeah, so Baylor's got... Yeah, they haven't really played any of the blue bloods in the Big 12 yet. They've got Oklahoma this week, followed by Texas. That's the pizza delivery guy. He's here, so the dogs are going off. I apologize in the background. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, they haven't really played anyone just yet. They beat TCU 29-23 in their last game. West Virginia 17-14.
That was a triple overtime game.
That was the TCU game was? Okay.
Yeah. They were life and death to beat TCU, a 5-4 team. I mean, it was nothing like.
Okay, I didn't realize that. All right, thanks for that. They've had a lot of close results. TCU 29-23, West Virginia 17-14, Texas Tech they beat 33-30. Iowa State, who I think is a pretty solid team, 23-21. This game's being played on their home field. They have a good defense. Oklahoma, I mean, their defense is starting to fall apart. Alex Grinch, their defensive coordinator. I'm going to take Oklahoma in this one. I think they edge it out. They edge them out. I think they've got a little bit of a talent edge there. They've got the better quarterback in the game. I think they get this one done, and I think that also is probably puts a real pin. It pulls the pin out of their playoff hopes. The Big 12 that is. So I like Oklahoma in that game.
Yeah, I do too. I'm going with Oklahoma. I think they're going to even cover.
Okay.
It's another one of those weird things where you think, why wouldn't Baylor, be? They're the ones that are undefeated. They're the ones that.
Yeah, they've had a lot of close games.
Front runners, but
a lot of close games, and they haven't played any of the blue bloods in the Big 12 just yet. So I like Oklahoma in that one. All right, guys. Hey, that was a great effort for a midweek pod. We're coming up on 48 minutes. Thanks so much for making the time, and we'll speak on Sunday. All right, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.